Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in. Brute force attacks are automated guessing campaigns that try many possibilities until one finally works, and they remain one of the oldest and most persistent threats on the internet. The idea is simple. A program tries passwords, codes, or keys over and over, hoping to stumble onto the correct secret by chance or pattern. This matters for everyday life because email, banking, social media, and even home devices depend on secrets that attackers can target with speed and scale. A single weak setting or reused password can turn a private account into a stepping stone for fraud or larger breaches. Beginners sometimes imagine only complex hacks matter, yet repetitive guessing breaks into far more accounts than cinematic exploits. Understanding how these attacks operate helps people and teams choose defenses that make guessing slow, noisy, and ultimately not worth the attacker's time. People say brute force as if it were one thing, yet several patterns exist and often overlap in practice. Online brute force happens directly against a live login form, while offline password cracking happens after attackers steal password hashes and try guesses without alerting the real site. Dictionary attacks test words and common variations rather than every possible string. And password spraying tests a few very common passwords across many accounts to avoid lockouts. Credential stuffing reuses real username and password pairs leaked from other breaches, which is devastating wherever people reuse passwords across unrelated sites. Reverse brute force flips the process by starting with a single known password and searching for accounts that use it, which also exploits reuse. These patterns share the same goal of guessing a secret, but their speed, stealth, and success rates are shaped by the systems they confront. Offline cracking changes the balance because guesses happen away from the website, often after a breach of a database or directory that contained password hashes. Attackers load the stolen hashes into cracking tools and test massive numbers of guesses locally without triggering lockouts or logs on the original site. Salts force the attacker to compute each guess separately per user, which defeats shared shortcuts and rainbow tables that rely on pre-computed hashes. Key derivation functions such as password-based key derivation function 2, bcrypt, script, or argon2 deliberately slow hashing with work factors and memory costs, which multiplies the attacker's time and electricity per guess. Strong configurations transform each guess from a microsecond task into something thousands of times slower, which is powerful at scale. The right storage choices therefore decide whether stolen files become immediate compromises or just expensive puzzles. Leaked credential dumps fuel a different route entirely, where the attacker does not need to guess anything because someone already did the guessing elsewhere. Billions of username and password pairs circulate from old breaches, and many people reuse the same secret across email, social media, streaming, and even work accounts. Credential stuffing takes those real pairs and tries them directly on a new site, succeeding whenever reuse exists and second factors are absent. This explains why one company's breach can lead to sudden break-ins at an unrelated service that never experienced a breach itself. Attackers amplify success by enriching dumps with names and domains to target likely employees at specific organizations. The humble habit of using unique passwords per site immediately breaks this chain, which is why managers and passphrases matter so much. For individuals and small teams, the signs of brute force attacks often look like noise at first, which is why attention helps. Unexpected password reset emails, new device or new location alerts, and short lockouts after limited failed attempts can all indicate someone is testing doors. Bank notices or strange purchases after a mailbox break-in can be the downstream result because email resets control many other accounts. A tiny scenario makes this concrete. An online shop owner reuses an email password that was exposed years ago. An attacker stuffs that pair into the email provider, then resets the shop's payment gateway and silently redirects payouts. Nothing looked technical, yet the chain began with guessing or reuse at a single step. Small signals deserve a second look because early detection keeps small incidents from turning into long cleanups. Personal defenses work because they either make guessing harder or make stolen information useless, which is the practical goal. Unique long passphrases defeat credential stuffing and push brute force attempts beyond realistic time limits for both online and offline attacks. A password manager reduces the burden by generating and storing unique secrets, while a few memory-friendly passphrases cover devices and critical accounts with calm simplicity. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, adds a second proof, such as a code or prompt, which stops attackers even when a password is known, provided the prompt is not approved accidentally. Removing shared accounts, closing unused accounts, and revoking old app connections shrink the number of doors an attacker can test. These steps are small on their own, yet together they turn guessing into a slow, noisy, and mostly hopeless activity. On the application and network side, effective controls make online guessing expensive without punishing real users, which is a practical balance. Progressive delays slow repeated failures from the same source or against the same account, while sensible lockout thresholds pause attempts without creating easy denial of service situations. Rate limiting at the application and at reverse proxies reduces burst speed, and bot management, or a completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart, CAPTCHA, can separate automation from people when appropriate. Geo-velocity checks and impossible travel rules flag logins that jump between distant locations faster than plausible, which helps triage large campaigns. IP allow lists and conditional access can protect admin consoles or high-risk portals so only approved networks can even attempt authentication. Each layer removes cheap paths and forces attackers into slower, riskier, and more detectable behavior. Defenses for stored secrets blunt offline cracking by transforming each guess into a costly operation, which is the heart of protection after a breach. Strong salted hashing is non-negotiable, and modern key derivation functions with high work factors make even high-powered hardware grind. Minimum password length requirements that favor longer passphrases change the math because every extra character multiplies the search space dramatically. Banned password checks stop the worst choices by comparing new passwords against lists of common or compromised secrets before accepting them. Periodic rotation is useful for shared keys, service accounts, and tokens where exposure can be hard to detect, though it should be applied thoughtfully to avoid encouraging predictable patterns. Combined, these measures decide whether stolen files become a quick win or an expensive failure for criminals. Detecting brute force requires paying attention to patterns in telemetry because single failures rarely tell the story by themselves. Security information and event management (SIEM) tools and centralized logs help correlate signals such as spikes in failed logins, clusters of failures spread thinly across many accounts, and waves of attempts from networks known for abuse. User agent strings that report unlikely browsers or identical versions across thousands of attempts can add confidence that automation is in play. Geolocation patterns that shift across continents within minutes or that target accounts from countries without employees are also useful triage clues. Pairing authentication logs with application errors, firewall blocks, and identity provider alerts helps confirm a coherent campaign rather than random background noise. The goal is to turn dispersed hints into a reliable picture that supports timely action. A simple, reliable response inside a Security Operations Center (SOC) starts with confirming the pattern and protecting people before tuning knobs. Analysts verify indicators across systems, then coordinate safe throttling through rate limits, temporary blocks on obvious sources, or conditional access that restricts risky endpoints without disrupting trusted traffic. Users whose accounts show repeated targeted failures might receive forced resets, session revocations, or stepped-up multi-factor authentication (MFA) to keep them safe. Evidence capture matters, so teams preserve logs, timestamps, ranges of internet addresses, and representative requests for later analysis or reporting. After the pressure drops, teams tune lockout thresholds, update banned password lists, adjust bot defenses, and review storage configurations to harden against the specific tactics observed. A calm, evidence-first routine turns a noisy campaign into a learning moment that leaves systems stronger. Some environments face brute force attempts against special surfaces, and understanding them broadens the defensive picture beyond standard web logins. Application Programming Interface (API) keys often sit in configuration files or developer tools, so rotating them regularly and scoping their permissions reduces risk if guessing or exposure occurs. Secure Shell, SSH, and Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, should prefer key-based or brokered access rather than passwords, and should sit behind Virtual Private Network, VPN, or Zero Trust brokers to narrow exposure. Wi-Fi Protected Setup, WPS, personal identification numbers, PINs, can be guessed quickly, so disabling WPS and using strong Wi-Fi passphrases avoids an avoidable problem. Mobile device unlock codes should be long enough to resist quick guessing and paired with biometrics where available. Treating each surface on its own terms keeps the most overlooked doors from becoming the easiest entry points. Teams that build applications can also reduce the attack surface by shaping the user experience around safe defaults that respect both security and convenience. Clear feedback messages should avoid telling attackers whether the username or password was wrong, because those clues help refine guesses. Enrollment flows can require email or phone verification to ensure accounts represent real people, which reduces the number of viable targets for automated spraying. Password creation screens should encourage long passphrases and reject compromised choices transparently, rather than nudging people toward complex but short patterns that are easier to crack. Recovery processes deserve equal care, because weak reset flows can be brute-forced just like logins and can even bypass strong primary defenses. When systems lead people towards safer choices, brute force becomes technically harder and behaviorally less likely to succeed. Finally, people and organizations benefit from preparing small playbooks that turn knowledge into quick action without panic during an event. A short checklist that lists who reviews alerts, who applies temporary blocks, who communicates with users, and who preserves evidence can shorten the time between detection and control. Training helps everyone recognize MFA fatigue prompts, suspicious reset emails, and the signs of credential stuffing in their inboxes or dashboards. Regular reviews of logs, lockout metrics, and blocked attempts provide a baseline so teams can spot unusual spikes faster. Post-incident debriefs that update word lists for banned passwords, tune rate limits, and capture what worked ensure improvements stick. These human steps convert scattered technical controls into a coherent, dependable response that scales with the threat. Brute force attacks remain simple in concept, but powerful when secrets are short, reused, or poorly protected, which is why layered defenses matter so much. Understanding authentication basics, recognizing common attack patterns, and watching for early signs helps people and teams keep guessing attempts loud, slow, and unsuccessful. Unique passwords, multi-factor authentication, MFA, careful storage, and measured controls at the edge combine to make attacks impractical. When systems and habits align this way, repetitive guessing loses its advantage, and security becomes a predictable result rather than a lucky outcome. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.